On this episode, Kirsty Melmed is my guest. Kirsty is a life coach, intuitive healer, and transactional analysis specialist from Cape Town, South Africa. She empowers people who anxiously try to make others happy, to be brave, to put down boundaries, practice self-care, and connect with their inner wisdom so that they can live life authentically. Through thousands of hours of learning and experience, Kirsty has created Brave to Be Me, a multimedia online personal growth program which takes her clients through the 5 brave steps and welcomes them into a supportive online community of fellow bravers. Find out more at the links below and follow Kirsty on Instagram and Facebook for daily inspiration. Brave to Be Me, you can find this at bit.ly/brave to be me. On Facebook, you can find her at facebook.com/Kirsty Melmed Life Coach. That's KirstyMelmed Instagram, you can find her at instagram.com/Kirsty Melmed Life Coach. Hi, Kirsty. Thank you for taking time out. And
hi, Greg.
Hey. We're going to have a nice time today. We've been talking a lot about this show. We've been prepping for it. And I'm excited. There's a few very interesting pieces coming around creating a personal brand. That's what we're going to be talking about. All right. So here goes. Kirsty, the word Kontiki, what meaning does that word hold for you?
Well, traditionally, a Kontiki is a journey to the continent, which would be Europe, that a lot of young people undertake to go and explore the world and learn a little bit about themselves. For me, Kontiki was the better part of my 20s that I spent working for the actual company called Kontiki that ran tours all through Europe. Actually, they're global now, but at the time, all through Europe. And where I went and I guess found myself.
So I've been talking to a few people and all, and what people tell me is that it's a very difficult organization to get into. Is that something that you went through? Was the getting in process quite tough? How did you get through that? If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, it's a very competitive recruitment process. So basically I went on a Kontiki tour with my sister and it was just so much fun. It was like the most fun I think I've ever had in my life. And I really enjoyed who I was as a result of that experience. So it was like I was this more extreme version of myself. You know, I was the last to go to bed at night. I was the first up in the morning, just really soaked it all in. And when I came home back to South Africa, I was like, well, I want more of that. Maybe instead of, because I was finishing up my degree that year. And so I was at a crossroads where it was like, I can either study more or I can go do something else. And I thought, I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to apply to work for Kontiki. And I jumped online and filled in the application and my heart dropped a little bit because it said, we don't offer Skype. At that time, Skype was the big thing. We don't offer Skype interviews. It's only in person from London. And so I was like, okay, so if I'm going to go for this, I have to be prepared to travel to London for an interview if I even get granted an interview because they have hundreds of applications. So I thought, you know what? I lived in London previously. I've got people there who whose couches I can stay on. I'm doing it. I want a year of adventure. And I'm committed to that. So I finished the application, sent it off, and I think half an hour later, I got a response saying, you're invited to an interview in London.
Oh, wow.
So then I checked the savings, jumped onto an airline's website, booked a one-way ticket, and I thought, you know what? If I get the job, then great. And if I don't get the job, I have friends to stay with. I'll make my way to Italy. I'll waitress my way around there. I'll do something. I was like, I just know I need to be in Europe and I need to be having adventures. So went over for the interview. As part of that, I had to do a whole presentation on a topic to do with Europe. So I spoke about Salvador Dali, my favorite artist, and the background on his history. It was a group interview, so there were a bunch of people doing the same thing. And I remember walking in and thinking, gosh, they're really going to be impressed by my dedication that I flew here, especially from South Africa. Like, I'm really going to stand out. Well, the person sitting next to me in the group interview was a young woman, the same age as me, who lives literally 5 minutes away from my house in Newtown.
Okay.
Who had done the same thing.
Who does the same thing? Yeah.
Like, oh, well, there goes my competitive edge.
No, but I'm sure that she would have said, wow, I've done it and she's just like me. She's also done it. So, I'm just thinking,
It all worked out. So we all did our presentations, and then we had to, I remember we all went for lunch together down the road, and we had to call back and find out if we got through to the second round, which was a one-on-one interview. And so everybody made their call, and a few people slunk away because they didn't get through, and then a few people did get through, and I was one of them that got through. Went and had my one-on-one interview, and I remember they asked me, you've come a long way for this. What are you going to do if you don't get the job? And I said, but I am going to get the job because this is what I'm here to do. Like, there's just no way this is not going to work out. And they were like, oh, we really like your confidence.
Nice.
Thank you. And then later that evening, I got an email inviting me to go on the training trip, which was a month later. And that's, when you're on the training trip, you've got the job. That's it. So yeah, I went on the training trip, which was a few weeks long, and where they teach you, all the things you need to know about how to do the job. And then on the last day of training trip, you finally get an envelope with your placements telling you where you're going to be positioned for the summer season. And I was given the role of head cook in Corfu, Greece. So
wow.
A few weeks after that, finally the summer season started, and that was that. And one season turned into 3 seasons on site, which turned into being promoted.
3 seasons in Greece, is it?
No, so I did 1 season in Greece, 1 season in Rome in Italy, and another season at a French chateau, which Contiki actually own, which is in the Beaujolais wine region of France. And then I applied to work from their head office in London, supervising all the on-site teams, and I got that job.
Wow.
So moved to London and spent 2 years working in the head office and also traveling from site to site, checking up on the teams. And that's actually what led me to coaching. So it kind of all worked out.
So you're out on a trip with your sister, if I didn't get that wrong? And finally you just decide, I want something different. Then you decide, all right, let's pack my bags and go, from South Africa to the UK. And then you clear it, and then you also grow, you start supervising a team. And then you also left it, right?
Yeah.
Again, you had this idea that, hey, I want to do something different. And so what's there? And now you set up your you've set up your own show. You're coaching people, you're counseling people, you're facilitating your programs. So I'm just wondering, so that's quite a big step that you've taken, and now you're willing to relook at that step and do something else. And so how is that happening?
So towards the end of my 5th year working for them, it just naturally came time to take stock and say, what do I want to do with my life? I'm approaching 30. I felt the need to settle down. I want to get married and have kids and do all of that. And what do I actually want to do with my life? Do I want to make this a career, or do I want to do something else? And I'd always wanted to go into a helping profession. I'd always wanted it. Initially, I was going to become a psychologist.
Wow.
But the commitment to, I had my undergrad degree and I needed to take it further. And that commitment felt very scary for me. I didn't really enjoy studying. And so I started doing some research and to see what was out there. And I also asked myself, well, what is my favorite part of this job? Because this job is perfect for me. That supervising job was just utilized every aspect of my skills and personality. It was made for me. So I thought, what is it about this job that I love the most? And other than the traveling, it was the sitting down for the one-on-one catch-ups with the team members. And it was the annual training trip that I got to run. And so I realized through a bit of research that coaching existed in the world, because I hadn't heard of it before. And actually, it's what I'd been doing all along anyway. So I found someone to train with to become an ICF certified coach who also trains people in transactional analysis, which is a kind of social psychology that I was interested in. And it just all made sense from there, you know, put in my notice, booked my ticket home, signed up for the training programs, got a day job when I got home, quit that day job when I finished my training, jumped in with both feet to being a coach. It was just this, it was such an easy decision to make because it just felt right. It just felt right. Even though it was hard to leave, because like I said, I loved it. I loved my life in London. And I do miss it, but I don't regret ever making that choice to come back and do my own thing.
You know, as you tell me about that, what comes to my mind is there's a whole bunch of people out there trying to figure out, A, what should they be doing? How should they be pursuing something meaningful? People at all rungs of the corporate ladder, right? Right on the top to the bottom. How do we make this job more meaningful for us? And what I hear you say is, you know, right from the time of saying, hey, I want to be a psychologist, but I don't know if I can put in the commitment. Even before that, saying that, hey, what is it that I'd like to do? I want to do something different. So really listening out for the essence of what is it that you're intuitively or some kind of a feeling inside of you is trying to say, right? And then, so not just from an intuitive perspective, but also, you know, moving from there to say that, hey, a little more left-brained, if I may make it. I'm just cooking all of this up. Let me know if I've got this wrong. Make it a little more left brain and saying, I'm in this job and I'm just going beyond Kontiki and your job and saying, I'm thinking of anyone stuck in a job, wanting to do something more, wanting to explore, saying, hey, but not knowing which direction to go into, saying that, hey, I'm doing this job. There are these 10 things that I do or 20 things or whatever number of things that I do. What are the aspects of this job that I really, really hate? That comes easy, you know, the aspects that I hate. But hold on a second. Is there something within this job that I really like doing? And then following that question up a little more, saying, okay, this is something that I like doing. In your case, it was talking to people and maybe just coaching people, mentoring people. And then saying, hey, how can I take this small little piece of all my responsibilities and how do I pursue it? How do I make it bigger? How do I get upskilled on it? And you know something, that's one of the initial few steps of the journey in finding meaning and finding purpose and finding how do I do something which I would like to do.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you there. But I think that the very, very first step that you named is listening to that inner voice. What's the intuition telling you? And I think that's where a lot of people kind of end before they even begin, because they get that idea and they think that's too crazy. I can't do that. And they start listing all the reasons why it won't work, or why people might judge them, or why, you know, people like me don't do things like that. You know, it's all these limiting beliefs that we have. And so that gets in the way and they kind of squash it and go, well, what's more practical? What makes more sense? And so my advice would be, when you have that harebrained idea, pursue it, take it further, think about it some more, do a bit of research, you know, start challenging yourself. Well, why wouldn't it work? Who cares what other people think?
Yeah.
And then yes, do the research, find out the things, and then
stuff. Yeah, do the analysis, the research.
You got to be brave to do it.
Yeah, do the grunt work. Absolutely. And you know what? What I'm also thinking is that our intuition is kind enough to say that may not be, you know, this is not a science, and it may not be happening every time. But I'm just also thinking of a few people I have in my mind that your intuition tries to tell you something once, you don't do it. That's all right. You carry on the same job, or you skip a job, or if you're doing a business or whatever else. And then it tells, you know, you can almost hear it saying something again. I want to get out of this place. You know, I want to do something different. a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, and then sitting back and saying, hey, I had this feeling some time back. I had a similar kind of feeling again, and now I'm getting this feeling. So is there a pattern? Is it like people? Is it dealing with people, or is it like dealing with numbers, or is it going more analytical? What is it trying to say really? And if there's like a pattern that your intuition is trying to tell you across some time, across certain situations, jobs, and the like, then I think maybe we want to give it a shot. Who's to say?
I mean, I guess it brings up a bigger question of, do we believe in purpose? Do we believe that we're all born with some kind of purpose or dharma or whatever, that is meant to be fulfilled in some way? And that's what your intuition is constantly, nudging you towards, is actually fulfilling that life's purpose. If you believe that, then start listening. And if you don't believe that, well, start plotting the course and thinking, well, how come the same thing keeps coming up? It must mean something. Maybe I'm just innately skilled in this area. Maybe I just really enjoy working in this area. Maybe I can help a lot of people in this area. Let me take that further.
I think that's such a profound question. Do you believe in a purpose? Or maybe, do you believe that you as a person could be driven by a purpose? Right? Because I'm just looking at myself and saying that some years back, purpose? Yeah, well, it's a good thing. So knowing it at an intellectual level, and then I think that magic word is believe. So really internalizing it and believing that. And I think there's some work that you do, acronymed as BRAVE. Say, how can I be brave? And I think one part of the intervention, it's a training program, but you also coach around it, I'm assuming. So if you can tell us a little bit about that. So what is BRAVE? How does it help someone find the purpose, be brave enough to embrace the purpose? If you could talk to that a little bit.
Sure. So my kind of slogan, if you want, in my business is be brave to live life authentically. And I feel like
be brave to live life authentically, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So stop living for everybody else, and stop trying to fit into what everybody else expects of you, and start being brave to actually do what you want to do, to make conscious choices, not just live on default. And all along, since I started my business 8 years ago, that's always been the mission: help people be brave to be who they are. And a few years ago now, I was thinking, like, how can I better explain to people the journey that they go on when they work with me? And it evolved over years. It evolved into what it is now, which is the brave journey, I would call it. And I sat down and I was like, well, I keep telling people about being brave. Maybe I should turn brave into an acronym, and let me see if I can be clever about this and sum up, the different steps. And this is what came out. So I feel like brave is a philosophy. I feel like brave is a journey. I feel like brave is a program. I feel like brave just like it's a very practical, you can sign up and each month you'll learn another aspect of brave. You can sign up for my brave toolkit. You can come do coaching and I hold brave in my mind and we go through the steps. So it's so many things, but what brave, should you want me to explain what brave?
Yeah, sure. Please.
Yeah. Okay. So the B stands for breakthrough old patterns. And this is where if you want something
old patterns, that's B, right?
Yeah. If you want something to change, you have to start doing things differently. And that means becoming really aware of what are your habitual patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. And how are those working for you or not? And if they're not, what can you start doing differently? You have to start doing something differently. You've got to think differently. You've got to behave differently. And a natural consequence of that is you're going to start feeling differently. So you have to break through those old patterns. The next step is R, which stands for reparent your inner child. And this is about, the reason that we often don't start doing things differently is because of these fears that sit inside us that were developed in childhood.
If I may interrupt, so inner child, what do you mean by inner child, and what do you mean by reparenting the inner child? If you just say one line about that.
So your inner child is basically all the emotions and fears that you held on to from childhood. Anytime things happened, you interpreted them a certain way, and usually that was quite limiting. And it was a survival mechanism. It's like, if I don't cry, then dad really likes that, so best I not show any emotion when he's around.
Right,
so it's like the ways that we start to shift our behavior to make sure that we are going to maintain the connection with our caregivers.
I remember Tony Robbins. I saw one of his videos where somebody was stammering, right? And he starts coaching this guy face to face. Turns out that it was something that he picked up in childhood, that when he would see his parents fighting, he would try and get attention away from that fight towards him. And he saw that through stammering, the attention came towards him. So initially it started off as like, a voluntary thing that he was trying to do, but then it just became part of him and he couldn't break that stammer. And then, so is that, so Tony Robbins, so just to complete, so Tony Robbins, he takes him, gets him to reflect upon that. And just by, or rather a big part of it was just by reflecting on that, he's able to let go of the stammer. So is that something like, taking a look at your inner child, or reparenting your inner child? Is that what
so that's kind of where the reparenting part comes in. Whether you had an ideal childhood or not, you're going to have walked away with some limiting beliefs around how to behave in order to get your needs met.
Yeah.
And that's, sometimes parents are abusive and sometimes homes are toxic, but also sometimes they're not. Sometimes
I read a quote. I read a quote once that nobody
haven't done their own work.
Yeah. I just remember a quote once. It says, "Nobody comes out of childhood unscathed." So
yeah, exactly. No, exactly. So your parents might have had the best intentions in the world, and you're still going to come out with an inner child that doesn't feel safe to be who they are for one reason or another. Usually 100 different reasons. And where reparenting comes in is it's now being able to acknowledge that you are no longer that child. You are now an adult who has all the resources and wisdom that you need to break free from that limited thinking. And so you need to become your own wise parent, your own loving parent.
Right.
So I always say your inner parent voice is that, some people might call it the ego, but it's that critic, that inner critic, that voice that's telling you how you should be behaving and what you should be doing. Or when that intuition speaks up going, no, that won't work. That would be your inner parent trying to protect you, but actually holding you back. And so reparent your inner child means beginning to give yourself permission to do things differently to how you've done them before. And that's a deeper level of work. That's working physically with your nervous system to become more regulated. That's working emotionally, with your inner child to help them feel safe. Working on multiple levels, basically. So we've got breaking through old patterns. We've got reparenting your inner child. We've got the A, which is access your inner wisdom. And this is where that listening to your intuition comes in, is actually, I do believe that we're all born with a purpose. And I think we keep outsourcing our big decisions to other people and asking, well, what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? And it's like, if you can stop doing that and just listen, turn inwards, you've got every answer you need already inside you. You're not listening. And then when you are hearing, you're not acting on it. So how do we begin to do that? That's the A. The V stands for voice your vulnerability. And this is where...
Did you say voice your vulnerability?
Yes, voice your vulnerability, yeah.
Why is that important?
So this is where other people come into it, is that nobody lives in isolation. We're all in relationship with other people day to day. And part of living a whole life, part of being authentic, is being real with other people. And that requires you to be vulnerable. That requires you to show yourself to other people. And so voicing your vulnerability means setting boundaries, being open, honest, direct about what you need. Negotiating how we're going to do this together, how we're going to find a way forward that works for both of us. So the V is really all about relationship. It's how do I navigate doing all of this with the other people in my life? Because as soon as I start doing things differently, they're going to have something to say about that.
Oh, yeah.
And then what? Am I going to stop or am I going to carry on? So we have to be vulnerable. We have to voice what's going on for us and find that way forward.
Okay.
And then the E stands for empower yourself daily. And this is about practicing self-care. But for me, self-care is much more than just a spa weekend. For me, self-care it's physical self-care for sure, on all the different aspects of that, your diet, your exercise, your sleep, your hydration, everything. But it's also your emotional self-care. And that would be things like asking for what you need in a relationship, putting down a boundary, saying, I'm not willing to talk about this, I find it triggering, taking care of your inner child. All of that is emotional self-care.
Wow.
We also have to practice mental self-care. What am I taking in on a daily basis when I'm picking up my phone? How's that affecting me? And can I make a choice that's actually better for me rather than being constantly triggered or feeling like an imposter when I'm looking at social media? And also spiritual self-care. So again, making room for practices that allow you to hear that inner wisdom. So meditating and journaling and spending time in nature and outside and praying and, whatever your belief is about a higher power is okay. But making sure that you are actually taking time to connect with that. So empower yourself daily means daily making choices that are going to lift you up and empower you versus hold you back and keep you in that disempowered place.
A few things come to my mind. I read something that says that, growing up, you get lots of love. Most of us get lots of love. But as we grow up, we got to learn to do a lot of less love, go through our lives for most people. And I think one of there's this in transactional analysis, I read this somewhere, the stroke economy, right? I was saying that when we want a hug, I'm just using the hug as an example. When we want a hug, we don't go and say, hey, I need a hug. When we want love, when we want a pat on the back, we don't go and ask for it. And as you're talking about brave, especially the empowering aspect of it, maybe even the vulnerable aspect, the V and the E, suddenly that light bulb went off in my mind saying, hey, when I need something, can I begin to go ask for it with some of my relationships? So is that something that you'd say it's a good thing to do, or
Definitely. And what can you do for yourself? So for me, it's all about taking ownership of your needs. And I honestly think needs is the thing that underpins everything. Because I think most of the problems in the world are because of unmet needs. And so it's A, acknowledging that they're there, B, doing something about it, whether that is asking for what you want from somebody else, what you need from somebody else, or figuring out a way to do it for yourself as well. Because sometimes, all the time, the responsibility to have our needs met is ours. Sometimes you do it for yourself, sometimes you need somebody else to help.
Okay, so I have an idea. As we're speaking this idea, I've not made these notes, I've not shared this with you, so you can tell me if you want to go in a different direction. The idea is this: I'd like to do a case study. I have someone in my mind. So what I want to do is I want to say that, so brave is, you got to help me out here. The B stands for believe, right?
Breakthrough old patterns.
Breakthrough, all right. R stands for the reparenting of your inner child. E is no A. I'm sorry. A is you gotta
Access your inner wisdom.
access your inner wisdom. V is voice your vulnerability, and E is empower
yourself
daily. Right. So that's the acronym. And Brave is a program, but also a philosophy, as you said, to help people heal. I'm sure you're looking at it from the, the healing lens, the healing perspective, people growing from the growth lens, from the finding meaning lens. I'm also bringing this in and looking at it from the creating a personal brand lens, right? What do I mean by that? So here's a case study. So I'm thinking of someone who is, I think you call it a caregiver in healthcare, right? And it does a good job of doing that, very noble job of doing people and stuff like that. But is in a job and is not satisfied with that job. Okay, the satisfaction is very evident, but that person doesn't even have the courage to even think of leaving the job. It's a stable job. We don't have the courage to think, wait, I want to do something else. It's very evident that the person sometimes, the frustration is just, you can, and it's kind of a legacy job. So there's, not much. So there's a lot of stability and stuff, but there's not much growth. There's nothing up, up beyond that. All right. And knowing the person a little bit, I would say this person, it's because of, I could be completely off, but a big part of it is because of stuff happening in childhood, abusive parents and like crazy stuff happening over there. To the extent that even if I were to say, hey, you know what? There's this lady I know, her name is Kirsty, and she runs this amazing workshop. You should go attend. So, no. I'm not going there. That's not me. Excuse me. What do you mean that's not new? So in one state is extremely steady, peaceful, very good at dealing with trauma. If she's seeing a patient, that person's got trauma, it's no problem. Very steady hand, very good at her job. But even if I were to suggest something like this, forget about taking steps of voicing that vulnerability. So complete, clammed up and stuff. So forget about opening up. If I were to just say that, hey, you know what, try something. I'm not saying only Kirsty or whatever. Go to somebody you might want to go for a workshop, go get coached, a mentor or something like that. So take some steps really, which does not only involve your thinking, also, pull somebody else into it. And then you might want to evolve a way forward, but it's completely closed to that part. Not because the person is not intelligent, is extremely intelligent, but the whole emotional machinery is not working towards that. So what would you suggest? How would you, I know this is hardly any data that I'm providing you with, and I know that you'd like to, have these questions and stuff for that person, but just some broad guidelines. If you
on how to deal with that person.
Yeah. Of how, I wouldn't say how to deal with that person. Let's say I'm that person, right? What should I do to, to get out of this thing that, oh my God, I can't look for something. It's like you said, oh, let's go. I'm off to UK, or I'm off to do something on my own. No. I just can't do that. I can't do that. That's not me. So, and if I say read a book. No, I can't read a book. That's not me. So what can somebody like that do?
I mean, there's so many different aspects of that, everything you just shared there. From that person's perspective, there's nothing that they can do. There's absolutely nothing that they can do until they are ready to do that, to do something. You know what I mean? So if she's completely unwilling to consider anything, well, she's not going to, so she won't. But at some point, it's going to reach crisis points, because we can't continue that way forever. And I think that's where people have breakdowns of some kind, is, or involuntarily, it's like, I don't know, the universe has other plans, she'll get fired, or she'll implode in some way, hopefully not, but Do you know what I mean? It's like if you're on a course and it's not sustainable, it's gonna end somehow, whether it's your choice or not. If you use the metaphor of you're standing on a platform and it's burning, fire is coming towards you, and you can either leap off and see what else is out there, or you can wait for it to consume the platform and then you're gonna fall. But either way, you're gonna get out of that situation. So from her perspective, what can she do? Well, nothing until she decides she's ready to.
So a couple of things here. So back home in India, so I've seen several people, I live this in a job. It's nothing like, so bad that I want to jump off a cliff or something, but it's just there. And now it's become the daily low grade discontent. Yeah. They're not imploding. They're just going towards the age of retirement. Some of them retiring, and then that's about it. So nothing is really happening there. But I'm saying that the opportunity for so much more is getting missed out.
Yeah.
And they're realizing it themselves.
It's so sad and frustrating to see someone in that situation when you know better. Well, not better. Only they know what's best for them, but you know that there are alternatives out there. And if they're unwilling to see them, you can't force them. So it's so frustrating to see. And sadly, some people do make it through their whole lives in survival mode, or doing what they think they should be doing rather than what they actually want to be doing.
Yeah.
And I think that is the way that it is. But as the person's friend, you can keep showing them what's out there, but without attaching to what they do as a result of that, because it's still their choice. Yeah. She might never wake up and say, hey, I want to do it differently. Or the universe might step in and force her to, It depends how dire the situation is, I guess, whether, you know what I mean, whether she can sustain it and be miserable, or whether it's not sustainable and then things will fall apart one way or the other. But as her friend, you can't force her, can't, but you can be there and you can keep reminding her. And one day when she's ready, she might say, oh, what was that book you recommended? Or what was that coach you said to go follow?
Yeah. Yes, of course. Yeah, I think it's important. I think it's important to just be there for the person, because even reminding works, but I think even the reminding too much turns people off and away from you, and that's what
it starts to become prescriptive and also a bit judgy. It sounds like you think you know better than they do about what's best for them.
Correct.
And we often do that, especially people like us who are in these kind of helping professions, is we just want to help. So it comes from a good place, but also it's quite disrespectful because it's saying, well, I'm taking my perspective and my frame of reference and I'm putting it onto you and saying you need to see it this way too. And you might be right, but who's to say? Maybe they need to be where they are now because there's some bigger plan that's playing out. And when the time is right, maybe things will change. But you can't force that. You don't know that. It's hard, very hard to surrender sometimes.
Yeah. I asked it purely from selfish reasons, or something that I had in my life. And I said, like you're saying, want to reach out and help and stuff like that. But then,
and the other thing to consider, one of the other things that went through my mind is, what is it in you that feels this need to fix,
to be the rescuer? To be the rescuer.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so that's where Brave would come in for you, is going, okay, well, what are my patterns of rescuing? How are those working or not? Am I pushing people away? Am I offending people? Am I actually helping them? What's that taking from me? Am I getting resentful as a result of that? Am I getting burnt out?
Yeah.
Okay, what happened in my childhood that's led me that way? Okay, you know what I mean? Like, and you go through the different things and you go on a self-awareness journey and figure out.
I realize about this. So the two aspects of my life, the personal and the professional. In the personal, this happens a whole bunch of times that, so my need to rescue somebody from whatever is pretty high. And then of late, I've been trying to tone it down. It doesn't work all the time. But I've been
There's three useful questions you can ask yourself when you notice the need to rescue.
Okay. I'm all right.
The first question you can ask is, have I been asked for help?
Have I been asked for help? Okay.
Yeah. If they didn't ask for help, why are you feeling like you're duty bound to give it? Okay. So the first question is, have I been asked for help?
Mm-hmm.
The second question is, can I help?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have capacity? Do I have the resources? Do I have the skill?
Mm-hmm.
Am I able to help?
Mm-hmm.
And the third question is, do I actually want to? Because us rescuers, and I'm also a recovering rescuer, us rescuers, we'll pitch in and do whatever needs to be done, whether we want to or not. And I think sometimes stopping and asking ourselves, well, do I actually want to do this, is a useful question. Because if you don't, why are you doing it? You're going to be doing it resentfully, or you're going to be burning yourself out. Either way, it doesn't end very well for you and the relationship. So
I went into that question thinking that you're going to give me a strategy to tell that person, or that person could do something, or people listening to this who are like that could benefit. But as I come out from that question, and as you responded to that with the 3 questions that you asked me, what's emerging is, hey, hold a mirror to your own face and see what's your need to rescue, and a little bit of self-searching. And I think that's equally, if not more important than just trying to say, what can another person do? What the hell can I do? And what the hell can I do? Not just rescue that person, even for myself. And then I think it's also getting back to brave and saying that, for my own self, empowering my own self and taking care of my own self. And it's because the whole giving and trying to rescue time and time and time again, that also has its downsides in relationships and at a energy, emotional part of it. So yeah. I want to change gears, Kirsty, now. And where I want to go with this is saying that you've been a coach, you've been a counselor. To me, you're a therapist. You're going to say no to that, but to me, therapist is there.
I'll say my coaching is therapeutic, but I'm not a therapist.
Okay. God knows, I still see you as a therapist. Never mind. So let's move. This is going to be a really big question. What do you think is your brand? What makes, so there are 2 parts to this. What makes you a good coach? And for yourself, like you think, okay, I did a good job. So that's one part of this. And when I bring in the whole brand bit of it, others perceiving you, and I've spoken to a few people as I was preparing for this. Other people also see you as this amazing coach, amazing counselor, amazing facilitator, right? So what makes you a good coach? And, as you're answering that request, if you could consider the 2 parts of it. One, what gives me happiness, me as in Kirsty, happiness and meaning. And then not just me, but how am I being perceived by the world? And that's working well. So what are you doing that is working well for the way how others perceive you?
Yeah. So many things that went through my head when you asked me that now. One of the things that went through was this idea of being versus doing.
Okay.
And often when coaches just start out, they do coaching. They're like, okay, well, these are the steps, and this is how you active listen, and this is how you ask a powerful question. And so, my training taught me this is how you coach. So I go through those steps and I do coaching. And as you go on, a seasoned coach becomes more about being a coach. It's like them in their being kind of shifts and takes on this quality, this essence. And that was going through my head when you were asking me that question. And so I feel like my personal brand, I guess, would be that I don't just do coaching.
If I can just back up a little bit and say, if you can unpack the being versus doing a little bit, maybe with an example, that would be super. Only one comes, only one comes to your mind. Yeah. Put you in the spot.
Yeah, sure. No, that's fine. So, okay, so doing coaching as an example would be, how do I ask a powerful question.
Mm-hmm.
Because the ICF have all these core competencies of what makes a professional coach, and one of them is you ask powerful questions. So
Mm-hmm.
to do that, I would know, okay, you don't ask a closed question, a
Mm-hmm.
yes or no question, because that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
really lead anywhere. You ask an open question. Okay, what are some examples of open questions?
Mm-hmm.
Often if you begin the sentence with the word how
Mm-hmm.
or what,
Mm-hmm.
that is an open question and then gets the person thinking about things differently. So I know the mechanics of what a powerful question is, and I can
Mm-hmm.
do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a skill,
Mm-hmm.
knowledge and a skill. How do I be a powerful coach? I'm not sitting and in my head formulating the perfect question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening to my intuition. I'm fully present with the person. I'm listening to what they're saying. And only when they finish speaking do I open my mouth and ask if a question emerges. But because I trust my knowledge, my skill, and my intuition, I'm able to ask a question that just hits the nail on the head, that pulls them up short and stops them in their tracks and goes, oh, I don't know, I didn't think about it that way, and causes them to have an aha moment. So I can do powerful questions, but when I am being powerful, the questions are naturally going to be powerful anyway. But I don't know, does that kind of illustrate the difference? There's like something about knowing I have the skills, and there's something about being really confident about using them that I don't even know. It's almost like unconscious competence. I'm not thinking about how to do it. I just do it because I know that I can, that's who I am.
3 pieces emerge for me from there.
Mm-hmm.
One is the preparation. So whether it is reading, whether it's putting the number of hours, maybe sticking to your life and, where you're coaching from, if you're kind of living some of those. So that's the preparation bit of it. Doing the ICF, or who I'm not advocating for ICF. It's a great place, but I'm not advocating for them, or any other system that teaches you how to coach. So that's the preparatory bit of it. The second part of it is, and I want to ask you, how do you do, if you can give us a few pointers and tips on how to do this, the being present. How does one be present? But I think the second piece that you're saying is your ability to be
integrate
as present as you can in the moment, be present, and and integrate the preparation in the present. So that's the second bit. And the third bit, what I hear you say, is faith or trust in the process, in that person and in yourself, and maybe the coaching muse. I just cook that up, but that something will bubble up to the surface. The relevant piece will bubble up to the surface. I'm not trying to force fit a powerful question.
Yeah. I mean, I think another great example that could really illustrate it from everyday life is driving. When you think about when you first learn to drive, the mechanics of it are just so like, okay, I've got to push this, and then I do that, and then this is how I drive. So, it's a very conscious process figuring out how to drive. And then you practice it and you do it a whole bunch. And somewhere along the line, you stop thinking about every step and you just do it.
Yeah.
And you get to a point as a driver where you're like, I actually don't know how I got from there to there because I didn't even think about it. I just did it.
And then if you're I've tried this because I've been driving, I don't know, I must have done clocked about, I don't know, a crazy number of 500,000 kilometers or something like clock. So I think I'm a little good. I'm a slightly good driver. I think I'm a good driver. Okay. So when I'm driving, I'm trying to ask myself, so what am I doing? I'm trying to figure it out. So and I'm like, if I have to overtake another vehicle, I'm asking myself, what's the best speed? Should I go left? Should I go right? So I'm trying to bring in the thoughtful process, and that just messes it up. So just knowing that, trusting in your instincts and your experience, but that can only, but what I feel is that can only come if you've put in the hours, if you've burnt that midnight oil, if you've put in that effort to understand coaching yourself.
It's practice. You have to practice. So practice makes progress. You have to practice. And I think that's also where brave comes in, is you have to be brave take action. You have to be brave to try.
How do you get present in the moment? How do you do that?
So being present in the moment is really understanding that when you are listening to someone speak, there's actually 3 different levels of listening going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And the first level is I'm hearing the words that you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing the words. The second level is I'm noticing, the second level is what's going on in my head while I'm hearing the words. So you're asking me a question, and in my head, I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to answer? Oh, that reminds me of this. Oh, I must remember to say that. So there's like this inner chatter going on. That's the second level of listening. The first level are your words. Second level is what's happening in my head. The third level is being able to read the energy of the person or the body language or the vibe or it's like what's happening underneath the words. And being present means turning down the inner chatter and really focusing on that third level of listening.
Yeah.
Like, what am I picking up here? It's not about me and what I'm going to say next. It's about this person in front of me. Really understanding what they're saying and what they're not saying.
So
for me, present is turn down the chatter, in a nutshell.
My journey of trying to be present, I've got a little hack which works for myself, which is that, so like you've nicely articulated it. I hadn't articulated it like this. So there are like 3 levels, right? The second level where you're aware of the internal chatter that's happening. So for me, what works is like right now, so like I'm making my notes over here and like right now. So when there's a question running in my head, I can put it out on paper. So that's kind of freeing up my mind space. I know that's not going to go away. Now I've got it captured. All right. And that's kind of freeing up my mind space to say, okay, let's listen. So I don't know, is that something that you've tried out before, or?
I have tried it. It didn't work for me because I'd get distracted by my notes and then I wasn't really present. But different strokes for different folks, if you can scribble away and you're still listening, then that works for you. For me, I'd get distracted. Or I wouldn't even look, and then it's like, what's the point? But it is useful to have notes, of course.
Find what works for you. That's one of the essences of also what I'm taking away. Find what the hell works for you, right? Whether it's notes or not notes or anything else. So figuring out what so keeping that ear open to all those ears open for what works for you. I want to pull back a little bit and say, so prep, being present and trusting. I want to go back to the prep aspect of it. Yeah. The prep aspect of it, saying you've already done a lot in the prep, which allows you to be present. If you don't know your stuff and all, then how do you be present? What are the pools that you're dipping into? Or rather, what comes in handy? What bodies of knowledge or concepts or training comes in handy when you're coaching? So is it very linear? Is it only like ICF? Is there some other stuff? What's coming in handy?
I mean, multiple things. Okay, so first and foremost, as a foundation, is my coach training. And I was trained in a coactive style of coaching, which basically means exactly what we've been discussing, that I'm fully present, I dance in the moment. I don't know what question I'm going to ask next because I'm listening to understand, not to respond. It means a whole bunch of things, but it's basically the way that I coach. The second thing that informs me is my intuition. And something that really helped me develop that is a training I did in a modality called inner tuition.
Inner tuition, okay.
Inner tuition, yeah. So it's a South African lady who developed this. And it basically means I can connect with a person's energy. I don't know how else to describe it. I can connect with a person's energy field intuitively, and I can pick up things that are going on. So everyone does it differently, but how it works for me is if I'm connected with you, it's like I can feel a lot of your emotion in my body. Sometimes when a client is saying something that's really important, I get goosebumps. And all my clients I work with online, it's become a joke where they'll say something and I'll just hold up my arm and they know I'm getting goosebumps. So it's important, I get images that come into my mind, words that go through my head, and I really trust that. There's also a bunch of tools and techniques on how to use it to help a person process stuck energy and get clear in their own energy system. But that really informs me as a coach, because it means I really trust my intuition. I really trust.
So the inner tuition, is this something that's also online, or is it only?
She's busy moving it online, but she's a lady in her 70s who's a bit of a technology phobe. And she's been doing this work for, 30 something years.
Wow.
But it's,
what's her name, if I may?
Her name's Margaret Holton.
Margaret Holton, huh?
Yeah. And so there's a few people who are trying to help her move it online, or to at least turn it into a book or something, so that, she's obviously in the later stages of her life. We'd hate for it to disappear with her. But she's certainly trained hundreds of therapists over the years to do the work. So the work continues, but it would be a shame if inner tuition got lost.
So it's like a 4 or 5 day program, a longer program, 6 months?
No, months. There's 2 modules, and each one is about 4 months long. Wow. We meet once a week for half a day.
Wow.
4 months and learn and train. And
wow. Yeah. Okay.
So that really gave me a great understanding of energy and what that means and how to work with it, and really trust myself. So that's a big part of it. And then another part of it for me is transactional analysis. And that, like I said before, is a social psychology. I know it's very big in India, and in other parts of the world it's growing. But it's really about relationships and people, how they interact with each other, what they believe about themselves while they're doing it. So that really informs my coaching, because I've done so much training in transactional analysis. Again, that whole doing versus being. When I first started learning the different concepts and the models, someone would speak, and in my head I was plotting out one of the models, and they're doing this, and so they're doing this, and thinking about it. Whereas now I'm far enough along that I don't have to do that anymore. I just know. I just sense, or I just understand what's happening in terms of the TA frameworks. And then with my clients, I'm able to actually teach them the concept so that they can see it, or use it to inform the questions that I ask, because I really understand the dynamic at play of whatever situation they're talking about. So I'd say those would be the 3 main. There's been lots of other stuff like polyvagal theory and how to regulate ourselves when we're dysregulated in our nervous system. There's loads of other stuff, and every mentor or teacher I've come across over the years, I've taken a bit of that, taken a bit of that, taken a bit of that, and I think it's all helped me evolve into who I am as a coach and as a person. And I'm hoping that those 2 things become more and more entwined. I don't want to be different as a person as I am as a coach. And I think that's maybe part of my personal brand, is that I'm not. Who I am as a coach is who I am as a person, is who I am as a coach is who I am as a person. There's, you know what I mean? I don't want those to be separate. That's who I am.
Yeah. And what I see over here is that it's like TA and the inner tuition and your ICF, and then your drive, all of these coming together. So it's not just one piece that's coming together. It's how you're combining all of this to come together to, and then so when I interact with you as a coach and me as a coachee, then I see Kirsty's a coach, but it's a good composite, right? And I think that's one of the pieces contributing to your the way people perceive you, your personal brand and the like, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
So what's your advice for somebody starting off as a coach, right? At least in India, and even I think the world over also, there's coaches galore. Everyone's becoming a coach, right? And you're retiring, becoming a coach. Somebody, midway in their career, becoming a coach. Some people starting their career, becoming a coach. So it's a very recent field, or what, 30, 40 years ago. And it's just caught on fire over the last 15 years, 20 years max. But it's really mushroomed like crazy. So what I'm saying is really there's so many coaches out there. And if somebody wants to follow this field, how does one get into being a successful coach? What are some of the steps, or what are some of the things that someone could do?
Well, first and foremost, start doing your own work, your own personal development work. Because
where do I start?
Someone told me once, you can only take your clients as far as you've gone. And that really scared me because I want to take my clients far. And I thought, oh, better start focusing on my own work a little bit.
I was wanting to ask you, what's your driving factor behind TA and the inner tuition bit of and the ICF bit? So yeah, okay, that's an interesting one. So that's your driver, right? Perhaps.
I want to help other people would be one. And the other one is I just want to understand. My whole life, it's like I just want to understand. I want to understand what makes people tick, why they do what they do. I want to understand what they mean. I want to understand what's going through their head. I just want to understand.
That's really important for you, understanding people.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. What would you attribute that to?
Many things. I think part of it is my natural innate need, my natural innate curiosity. Another part of it that I think has come out of my own therapy is my parents got divorced when I was at a young age. And I remember always asking, but why are you getting divorced? And the answer I always got was, I can't talk about it now. Like, it's not appropriate for me to talk to you about it now. I was only 6 at the time. But you'll understand when you're older. You'll understand when you're older. And so there was always this, like, you don't need to understand now. You can understand when you're older. And I was like, no, but I want to understand now. And I think that is one of the things that contributes to my need to just always want to understand.
Thank you for sharing.
So if you're starting off as a coach, I would say go do your own work, whether that's therapy, whether that's a coach like me who works therapeutically, just whether it's reading a book that starts opening your mind up, like just go start doing your own work, because to really help people, you have to understand how people think, and you are your best first client.
Right. Who am I? What makes me tick? What makes other people tick? So it could either be self-awareness, other awareness, and both I think are connected at the hip somewhere.
Well, and also when it comes to actually marketing yourself, that's going to kick up a whole bunch of limiting beliefs as well. So if you're not really strong and secure within yourself, you're going to have a little dark night of the soul when you start that business. So start doing the work ahead of that, and hopefully you can have a
I'm not someone who can go on camera. I'm not someone who can talk on camera, so that's marketing today. Digital marketing is a big one. So yeah, that kind of helps there too. So first things first, do the work. Do the work.
Do the work.
Yeah.
Second thing, do some research. Figure out what is out there. Like, go to the ICF and read all about what they promote and decide if that feels good for you or not. Go find some of the other places. There's so many coaching institutions. There's so many companies offering training. But what I will say is, when you find somewhere to train, and I do believe you need to train to be a coach. And to be honest, it's a totally unregulated industry. Anybody can call themselves a coach. But I really think a good coach is someone who has been trained in the skill of coaching. And when you are looking for someone to train with, A, make sure you align with them, make sure it resonates, make sure it feels right. B, make sure there is a practical component to the training. I had a call this morning. I run a marketing and mindset meetup each month with a bunch of new coaches who are looking to get their first few clients. And the one lady who joined us this morning, she just completed her training, and it was all theoretical. There was no practical hours. And so she's terrified to start coaching because she's never done it. She's just talked about it. And for me, that's not what you want. You want a training institution that's going to make you coach and give you feedback and let you practice. Remember, how you go from doing to being is practice. You have to practice. And then C, 3, wherever we are, is go figure out how to market yourself as a coach, or go figure out the business strategy side of it, because otherwise, and this was my journey, is I was so passionate about the coaching, I didn't even think about the fact that I had to find clients somehow. And so it really stalled me in becoming successful because I didn't have any clients. And I just thought they would appear because I was so passionate about it. And I knew I was good at it. So I was like, I don't understand. Why is this not coming together? But it was like, I wasn't marketing. I had no strategy. I wasn't thinking like a business owner.
Yeah.
I was just wanting to coach. And I think that's such an important piece of the puzzle.
How does one begin the marketing journey? Just go start posting? What would you advise somebody?
Go learn. Go sign up for a course, sign up for a free webinar if you don't have any money. Go read a book. Like, just do something and start learning about what are best practices.
Yeah.
What are
marketing? Yeah.
Yeah, how does social media work? How does email marketing work? What are the old school, not online methods, which are as important? How to build relationships? Go and just learn as much as you can about that, and then start doing it.
So two pieces here. One, go get trained. Do three pieces here. So you're saying do the inner work, right? Go get trained, ICF or elsewhere. Three, learn about marketing. And these three are also, as a very small three pieces coming together to form that composite. Like you, I'm just drawing on that parallel. I'm going to make a statement, or I'm just going to ask a question saying, tell me if this works. So what do you say that I do all of this as a new coach? But it's important with let's just say ICF, with the training in ICF, is it important to also have been trained in something else? Like, let's say I've got an ICF. Now with that, I get trained, let's say, I don't know, for NLP, right? Or I get trained in, let's say, Gestalt or psychodrama or hypnotism. Yeah, that's an upcoming field. So, and I combine that, and the combination of that now, the fourth little pillar coming up, and
so yes, and I would say to get started, no, you don't need to do that. As long as you know how to coach, you can get started. And continue upskilling yourself along the way.
So just
I think that's very necessary.
Put in the hours, chop wood, put in the hours, and then as you start getting a little mileage under your belt, so then that's like a roadmap. That's how you want to roadmap it, right?
I would say. I mean, look, and if you've got the time and the resources to do all of that before you start, then do it. It'll make you more powerful when you start. Yeah. But if you need to start because of time, money, all of that, then just start. Just get started, but make sure you've got that at least initial training in, and then continue to upskill. It's a lifelong journey. And also, I think as a whole, we're all still learning, and the industry is learning, and like we know so much more now about people and what makes them tick than they did 50 years ago.
Right.
So you have to keep learning. You have to keep learning because things are always evolving and more is being understood, and you want to keep up with that.
Nice. Cool. So as we come to a close, Kirsty, I just wanted to ask you, any last message would you like to send out to our viewers? Our viewers could be somebody wanting to create a brand for themselves, upcoming coaches, somebody, actually a pretty broad canvas, somebody wanting to get started with the work, may not be becoming a coach, but just get started at being a braver person. What message would you like to put out there?
Give yourself permission to feel however you feel about it. Be honest with yourself and give yourself that permission, and then take action anyway.
Take action
anyway, but you have to acknowledge how you feel, and you have to be okay with the fact that you're feeling it. And then you have to be brave to take action.
Nice.
I mean, I could elaborate on that for like a whole other hour, but maybe I must just leave it as that one sentence. I hope it makes sense.
We won't leave it. That's part 2.
All right.
Yeah. So, okay then. Thank you very much, Kirsty. I've totally enjoyed and learned. Not just enjoyed, I've learned so much. Thank you for taking time.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
See you soon. Thank you for tuning in for this episode today. I hope you learned something useful. And if so, please remember to leave this podcast a 5-star rating and review. It will help me know that what I share here is making a difference in your career growth. In the next episode, I will meet you again with yet another topic on personal branding for professionals. Till then, keep doing the good work. This is your host, Greg Chapman, on the Remarkably You podcast.